Hello and welcome back to Slaggy Book Club. I'm Cameron and Northern Hemisphere. Are you listening? I'm talking to you. Summer is just around the corner. Can you feel it? Can you feel how close it is? How the days are getting warmer and the sun is starting to shine for a little longer every day? Not me, it's winter here, but I can pick up on your vibes, and my majority American internet won't stop talking about the fact that summer is mere weeks away. And so you're gonna need some books to read. Some light, fun, romantic, summery, but still intelligent and still complex and still literary books to read. So here's where I come in. I have collated a list of all the best books that you can read this summer, from backlist titles to books that are available now to books that will be dropping throughout the warmer months. I've got it all covered. I have got the hottest books that you need to know about, and I'm going to tell you what they are right now. First, if you are here but you are not one of my existing predominantly American subscribers, then do feel free to hit that button just down there and join the Slaggy Book Club. I would be so honored to have you here. Thank you for tuning into this video regardless. If you are an existing subscriber, do you follow the Slaggy Book Club Instagram? Everything that I talk about on here gets posted there so that you can get all the references, all of the lists of books in one easy spot. You can go back there. There's also extra stuff there. You know, my current reads and little reviews that I don't always post on here. So it is worthwhile jumping on over to the IG, giving it a follow. I'll wait. Okay, cool. Shall we get into the summer reading guide? I want to start with 3 backlist-ish, but still like contemporary novels that I do recommend quite often. But if you're new here, I have to set the tone, I have to set the vibe, you know? We have to see if our tastes are aligned. I get it. So let these 3 books give you an idea of the types of stories that I'm into. And hopefully they're the kind of stories that you like too. Hey, if you haven't heard of them before, take my word for it. You should check them out. Starting with Old Enough by Haley Jacobson. You might recognize this book from my profile pictures across my social media. And it rightly deserves that place, that consistent promotion across my platforms, because this is one of the most fun yet complex books that I have read in recent years, and I am so overjoyed to be recommending it in this video because it is actually really difficult to get in Australia where I live. It is a lot more accessible in the USA. So this follows a queer protagonist who is in uni and she is studying gender studies, and so you can imagine what the sort of cohort of her lectures are like. She's finding herself within this queer community at uni, but she's also trying to sort of navigate this quite dark thing that happened to her recently. And so she's going through the motions of processing that trauma while also figuring out her identity. It's also super online and contemporary and youthful in the sense that, like, there are super fun references in here. There's super funny like slang and lingo. This had me laughing out loud. I absolutely adored all the characters. I had such a fun time with it. And it was a really like easy breezy, quick gripping page turner of a read as well, which is perfect for summer vibes. Next is The Water Cure by Sophie McIntosh. Now this one is leaning into more of a speculative, dark, dystopian type of vibe, but it does still have a summery feeling to it. This is set in a world where men make women sick. You really, as a woman, don't want to have contact with the men of the world, right? And it's all a bit mysterious, but we follow this family whom the parents have moved their daughters out to an island to keep them safe from the men of the world. And the only cure to the sickness that men bring on is the water cure. And the family practice this. and actually for a time ran sort of courses, a retreat of sorts where women could come out to the island and learn how to put into practice the water cure. Then one day, the dad of the family hops on a boat and heads off to the mainland to get some work done. And a couple of men show up on the island, and the girls are left to figure out how to survive. Again, this is super dark and mysterious, but it has this sort of whimsical kind of summertime airiness to it that doesn't make it feel like one of those sort of dark, wintry, gruesome horror novels or anything. The tone is still light, you know, the water is such a big theme in the book, and so that really gives it this summertime energy. And if you like more of a speculative, dystopian, strange type of story that leaves you asking lots of questions, then The Water Cure is absolutely worth the read. You may have heard of Sophie Mackintosh's potentially slightly more popular, more spoken about novel, Cursed Bread. I prefer this way more. And The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. This book, when it was released, was so huge. Absolutely did the rounds on socials. And so if you're here, I imagine you've probably heard of it. However, if you haven't, this follows two best friends. One of them is obsessed with an older man, and they all become a little bit entangled. And it is a love story and a love triangle, but about friendship as well as romantic love and just human connection in the most beautiful sense. If you know anything about Caroline O'Donoghue, you know that her mind works in beautiful and wonderful ways, and she is really able to craft such real and lovable and flawed and deep and complex characters, and this is such a lovely moving story. It's one of those books that you finish it and you close it and you just kind of take a moment to sit with the characters and how their stories ended, and realize how much you grew to love them and how much this book really did affect you emotionally. You know those books, you know when that happens, when you just have to take a moment? This is one of them. 3 of my favorite books, my top recommendations, my go-tos to set the tone. If you've heard of these, and these are kind of along the lines of the kind of books that you are into, that literary fiction, that queer, that dystopia, that interpersonal relationships and romance and friendship and emotional, etc. Let's dive into my next 3 summer recommendations, which are much newer books. They have come out within the year, and I've absolutely adored these. And I want to start with one that actually came out in Australia a while ago, but US, you are getting it very soon, at the start of June, I believe. Yes, within the first week of June, you should be getting your version of A Language of Limbs by Dylan Hardcastle, and I am so excited for you. Oh my God, this is such a beautiful story, but I'm also so excited that such a deeply Australian story is going global. This really is cemented in Australian queer culture history. This is the birth of the Mardi Gras parade in Australia, which, if you don't know, started as a protest. It was not a joyful celebration. It was harrowing, and some awful stuff happened. This is also set during the AIDS pandemic. You know, there's not a lot of sort of light in this story, but it is so important to learn that queer history. And while there is so much darkness, there is also hope within it. And I suppose to read it from 2025, looking back and knowing where we are now, and for better or worse, hello America, but seeing, you know, what people went through and what they had to fight for just, 30 odd years ago. This is a sapphic love story in a way, but merely a exploration of 90s Australian queer communities. Dylan Hardcastle writes poetry, and that tendency to the poetic is very, very clear in this book. And I am one who is not drawn to poetry nor capable of really understanding it. I don't consume poetry for the most part, and so there was a part of me that was hesitant going into this book thinking, oh gosh, what if it is really like prosy and poetic, and I can't hack the writing style. But no, it has that poeticism in the best way, and really is like a beautifully crafted story. And so I'm so excited for this to be released in America. Oh my gosh. Okay, next is Colony by Annika Norlin. Now this is a Swedish translation, and I believe in your country it will be called The Colony, judging by your US cover. So I guess it is The Colony for you, but this does follow a colony. It follows our protagonist though, who is an office worker in the city and hits burnout and has to take some time off. And what she does is she pitches a tent in the woods, essentially. And when she sets up camp, she sees across the river a group of people who seem to behave like in a bit of an unconventional way, the way that they sort of interact with each other and what they allow each other to see, and it's all a bit different. And so our protagonist becomes quite fascinated by them and eventually, in a way, infiltrates the group. And while our protagonist is the lens through which we observe the colony, we actually spend the most time within the members of the colony themselves. We get to know each and every one of them and their backstories and their histories and what led them to join this colony, to essentially leave society and start anew in this isolated group. It is a character study, period. It is a deep study of people, and if you're into that, then you will love this book because it is so fascinating and so considered. I feel like that so much thought went into building every one of these characters and their stories. There's so much in this novel, and the more that you learn about each person and how they ended up there, the more, I suppose, sad the story becomes. But overall, it definitely has a lightness to it and a sort of relaxed feeling of reprieve or escapism. You really do feel what the protagonist, I suppose, went to the woods to experience, that sort of freeing, that shedding of intense city life, the go, go, go. It does feel like you really get to slow down and take a breath of fresh air as you explore the colony. And I really feel like I got lost within that world. It felt like I didn't realize how much time was passing as I came to the end and realized how sort of expansive the story had been and how many years had passed, which is reflective of, I suppose, the members of the colony and their experience within the colony. It really is such an immersive text in that way. It brings you in and I suppose welcomes you, the reader, as a member of the colony. And then The Wedding People by Alison S. Barch. Now, I feel like this book was bigger in America than it was in Australia. So there's a part of me that's like, girl, why are you even recommending this book to these people? But there's gotta be some people out there that still haven't read it, so I'm here to drive it home. This book is the quintessential summer read for literary fiction fans because it treads this fascinating, perfect line between a literary fiction, a character study, and a rom-com, a fluffy, light, summery beach read. And so on one hand, because of that, it has received a lot of very mixed reviews. People who went into the book for a light, summery rom-com beach read and were faced with some very real, very dark themes and character studies and explorations of different relationships. And so it was a bit much, or a bit dark, or a bit slow for the people who wanted one thing. Or there are people that went into it expecting a dark and moving character study, pure literary fiction, and felt as though it was fluffy and shallow and making light of a dark theme. And you have to really meet this book in the middle where it sits. If you go into it appreciating that balance, it's such a great read. This is why it was one of the Goodreads People's Choice winners last year, or whatever it was. This story follows a woman who her 10-year-long engagement has ended, and all she ever wanted was to go and have a little holiday at this really nice hotel, and her fiance never was keen, and it never happened. And now that the engagement is over, she's like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna go and spend a night at this hotel. But she's there for a bit of a darker reason, except when she gets there, there are all these people in the lobby checking in, and they all seem to know each other. And when she gets to the reception, the person checking her in is like, oh, you're here for the wedding too? Awesome, like la la la. And she's like, sorry, no, what? I'm not here for any wedding. And the person working reception's like, no, you must be, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to have booked a room, because this hotel is booked out for this wedding. And our protagonist has to be like, I assure you, I am not with the wedding, but I certainly do have a room. What is going on? And now her presence in this booked out hotel for this wedding is threatening this bride's perfect plan for her wedding weekend. And the presence of the wedding people is threatening our protagonist's plan for her stay at the hotel. And thus the story unravels. Like I said, if you have found this channel because you are a literary fiction reader, then this is the perfect summer beach read for you. And I understand that most of you here have probably heard of it or read it already. So that's all I'm gonna say. If you haven't, please go read it. It's worth it. Now I want to talk about 3 books that are on my TBR. I haven't read them yet, okay? The next 6 books that I'm going to talk about, I haven't read yet. I cannot personally vouch for. I can personally vouch for some of the authors. I have read their previous works, but I'm going to talk to you guys about some stories that look really good and that I want to read. The next 3, I believe, are out and available. So, Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata, the latest novel from the freaky author of Convenience Store Woman and Earthlings. If you like weird, and I mean weird, not like hee hee weird girl fiction, weird stories, then Sayaka Murata is as weird as they get. I like a weird girl story. I read Earthlings and it was too much for me. It did not work for me. I was like, Sayaka Murata is not for me. However, upon reading the synopsis of this book, I am so intrigued. Remember how when I talked about The Water Cure and I was like, I do like a speculative kind of dystopian type of world that piques my curiosity a bit because it's a little bit mysterious and has me asking questions. That's what this book is doing to me. So Vanishing World is a speculative utopia. I think whether it's a dys or utopia is up to the reader, perhaps, or yet to be kind of seen. Where essentially it's weird to have sex with your partner. Like, as weird as having sex with a sibling. That's the world now. That's the reality of society has decided that You're married to someone and you have sex with them. That's kind of fucked up. And so artificial insemination is like the normal way to procreate now. But our protagonist finds out that she was conceived naturally. Yikes. And so she becomes fascinated by the possibility of a different way of life. And does that not just sound so fucking fascinating? I'm sorry, I feel like Australians swear a lot, and maybe not so much Americans. From what I've seen, like American media, swear words seem like a lot more taboo than they are in Australia. So I apologize for my swearing, but you know, if you're here, you're here. I love reading books. I love really reading nonfiction books on sexuality and human relationships. And of course, because I love learning about those things through nonfiction, I love reading about those themes in fiction. And so this particular story sounds so up my alley, like really, really feeding into my curiosities. It could still end up being super, super weird. There could, like, knowing Sayaka Murata's style, there could be some like weird bodily stuff happening. I know that I read in the synopsis that in this new world, men get pregnant and like carry babies because this like external womb thing has been invented that the men like wear. But all of that like raises questions in my mind, right? And makes me want to read it to find out how it all works and what this world looks like. What has Sayaka Murata conceived her? But it does sound like fun and funny and silly in a way, right? And so that for me is what's giving it the summer vibes. It's also like just come out. So it's meant for the summer for you guys. Next is Make Me Famous by Maud Ventura. You might recognize the name of this author. She wrote My Husband, which if you were present on Weird Girl Book Talk, not to create a niche where there isn't one, but perhaps, then you would have heard about My Husband, which is a story of a woman who is so deeply devoted to her husband and being the perfect wife and making his life just a joy, just perfect and so easy and wonderful. And then there's a twist at the end. If you know, you know. Now this is another story of obsession of sorts. This is Maud Ventura's second novel, and she seems to have found her niche, I suppose. Now this one follows Cleo, who through grit and determination and sheer self-belief has become what she always wanted to be, a filthy rich megastar. Yeah, since she was a little girl, she wanted to be a famous singer, and her parents were like, oh, okay, you'll grow out of that. And she defied the odds and beat everyone's expectations, and now she is rich and famous. But now she's 33 years old and she's on her first holiday in years. She's on this remote island. She's free of paparazzi or anything or anyone, and she has time to think. She has the space and time to think for the first time in a while, and she starts to think about how her life is all seeming to sort of unravel. I'm intrigued. I love obsession as a theme in fiction. I don't know if any of you have read Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan. That is a wonderful exploration of obsession in relationships and toxic obsession. Big Swiss as well, which I think I'm gonna reference in the next book that I mentioned. But yeah, there's definitely some converging themes here. But the idea of like a rich and famous celeb alone on an island on vacation, thinking about her life and how it's maybe falling apart, sounds like riotous fun. This is like summer noir. Hi. Oh my gosh, did I just use a pretentious sounding, I probably didn't use it right. This probably isn't summer noir, but what I was gonna say is that this sounds like quite a dark but summery novel. So surely that's what summer noir is. And Happiness Forever by Adelaide Faith. This is the one that I am like, for fans of Big Swiss, tune in. That includes me. I also want to say that America, your US cover, so much better than ours. Ours is like cool as well. Before I saw yours, I was like, ours is sick, love that. But then I saw yours, and yours is really cool. In fact, I found a lot of books that you guys have way better covers for. So sad. Anyways, in Happiness Forever, our female protagonist essentially falls in love with her therapist. She's in love with her, she's obsessed with her, and her therapist is like, no, that's just you projecting, like that's a common phenomena that can happen with patients and their therapists. It's not real. And she's like, no, it's real, I love you. I don't know what I'm paraphrasing right now. I haven't read the book. But this sounds like a really sort of funny, very original, sapphic story. It looks like it explores mental health, human connection, vulnerability, and I really love a funny story. I opened this video with Old Enough, which to me is such a funny book. And of course, when I say a funny book, often these books that I recommend, I mean, we're talking about literary fiction here, right? So a book that I recommend that is funny is probably also going to have some darker, heavier themes, discuss some real shit, have a lot more to it than just its humor. But I think that's what makes these books so wonderful. And when I say I like a funny book, to me, a funny book is a book that balances humor with those other things. And that's exactly what this book seems like it's going to be. And I think it's also, like, it, by the looks of it, a little bit of a shorter book, which lately really tickles me, because I feel like new releases so often now are very long. People are writing very long books, and I am in a place where I am very stressed about how many books there are to read. And I'm sure you, as a consumer of bookish media, are also very aware of how many books there constantly are being recommended to read. And so the longer those books are, the longer it's going to take to read them all. And it just adds this little extra something of stress. Not that we should ever be stressed about what we're reading. And if we do find ourselves in a position where we are feeling stressed about reading, then maybe we're going down the wrong path. But that's a me issue and nothing to do with you. Hey, have you hit subscribe? Follow? What about that little bell that tells you when I post? If you haven't, you might be missing my bonus episodes. You know, hitting the buttons is the best way to show your support for Psyche Book Club, but the second best way is to just be here. So thank you. Let's get back to it. Oh my God, I hate it when the coffee gets cold. Oh my God, it's such a shock to the system. Okay, finally I have to tell you guys about some books that are coming out throughout the summer. So you can get to reading all of the previous 9 books I just told you about. 9? Sure. I just told you about that are already out, that are readily available, waiting for you to go and get them. And then you can worry about these ones a little further down the track. You don't have to worry about them right now because they're not out yet. But get excited. Build the excitement. Now, I had to cut down this list because there are a lot of really, really exciting, good-looking novels coming out in summer. For you guys, you're gonna have a great literary summer. And if you want me to do like an extended version of all of the books that are coming out in America in summer, please let me know and I will do that for you, because when I was doing my research, I stumbled upon some exciting titles that went straight to my TBR. However, I will give you these 3. Ordinary Love by Marie Rutkowski. On the outside, Emily's life looks pretty sweet. She's got a nice house, 2 lovely children, an adoring husband. However, her husband isn't really who he seems, and they're low-key headed for separation. And that's when Emily bumps into Jen, her childhood best friend, and her first heartbreak. Yeah, there's some history there. It's been years since they spoke, and you know, Emily has done her best to not think about Jen over the years. She moved on, she built a life for herself, and that is in the past. And then she bumps into Jen, and it all comes rushing back. And so maybe now enough time has passed for them to give it another shot. This is a bisexual romance. That's it. And who doesn't want to read that? Hello and welcome to Slaggy Book Club, where we love some queer literature. We love a little lesbian romance. I'm sorry, bisexual romance. Yeah, that's like as simple as the story gets. It's categorized as literary fiction still though. It's not a quote unquote romance genre novel. So there's gonna be some depth of character. There's gonna be some complex feelings, but it feels like a nice summer romance. I'll definitely be picking it up. I don't know if I've mentioned that I'm actually going to Europe for the summer. So I will be having a summer at the same time as you. So I will be reading some of these summer books as well. And I'm very excited for this one. I love a little romance when I'm on holiday. I love it. I am not a romance reader, but from time to time. The Girls Who Grew Big by Layla Motley. Yes, oh my gosh, the acclaimed, extremely young author of Night Crawling. She's got her second novel coming out, which is super exciting because if she could write that as a teenager, can you imagine what she's writing as an adult? Oh my Lord. This one is a story about motherhood. When Adela tells her parents that she's pregnant, they send her away to live with her grandma in Florida, imagining that in 9 months' time, Adela will return and just get back to her normal life, like nothing ever happened. Well, when Adela meets Emery and Simone, girls, barely women, redefining what it means to be mothers, Adela's parents' plans are gone with the wind. I personally don't typically enjoy or love or super connect with stories about motherhood. Having said that, I did just read Mother Tongue and rave about it. And I'm sorry it's only available in Australia. But hey, hop online and Google an Australian indie bookstore like the Chestnut Tree, and they pretty much all ship international, so you can still, it's just expensive. Anyways, Layla Motley, though, is such a talented author that I can't not read this story. And I feel like this is going to be such a unique take and a unique perspective because the three mothers in this are young. I mean, one of them, at least one of them, is in high school still, you know, she's going to school with her baby strapped to her, you know, so it's going to be a unique story of motherhood, but I think it's also going to have this really beautiful balance of friendship, you know, girlhood friendships, which I love to read about. It's a good theme for me. It's set in Florida, Padua Beach. So there's your summer. And finally, guys, The Slip by Lucas Schaefer. Now this is for those who like a little bit of crime, a little bit of mystery in their literature, okay? This one is set in the summer of '98. A teenage boy takes up boxing and for the first time begins to feel comfortable in his body. Then he vanishes. Across the city, another teenage boy is coming into his own. He's been calling the local sex company for jokes, but he kind of discovers it's actually quite a good outlet for his insecurities. A decade later, and the missing teenager's uncle receives a tip that leads him down his own investigation of the disappearance. This book is described as a daring look at sex and race in America that builds to an unforgettable collision in the center of the ring. This sounds like such a complex story, and I don't typically read crime at all, but for some reason that element to this synopsis is really drawing me in. I think because there's so much complexity here and so many sort of different details. I mean, I really cut down the synopsis. The synopsis given for this book is quite long. There's a lot going on. It's very involved. And so I think that's really sort of tickling my interest. It does seem to have queer themes. That's the vibe I'm getting. Let me see if I can confirm that. I can probably confirm that with a little hop onto the Goodreads tags. They love to hashtag queer, LGBT, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to read between those lines. I also am completely obsessed with the cover of this book. This might be my favorite cover out of all of the books that I've just shown you. It is gorgeous design, really beautiful. Yeah, I think that this book is going to be quite powerful and moving. And finally, guys, as promised, some submissions from you slags. I asked you guys to tell me what books that you're looking forward to / recommend for the summer. So I'm gonna have a look and see which books that you recommended. Now, I'm just gonna say D14N40L1714. Are you really recommending Don Quixote and Count of Monte Cristo for summer? Or are you trolling me? Because that's crazy talk. Ali Sits on Bench has Happiness Forever, All Fours, so good, The Names, and Crush on their list. I actually have only heard of All Fours, so we'll need to check out the other 3. Bibliophilic Bitch is recommending Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Howarth. My unpopular opinion is that I didn't like that book, but I feel like, honestly, I'm the only person on the planet who didn't like it. Everybody else who talks about it loves it, and it's definitely a very summery, hot, steamy read. Lumiere Doodles has said Ocean Vuong's latest, and not the only person to have said that. Timoteo has also said Ocean Vuong's latest, and I am currently reading Ocean Vuong's latest. And while I don't feel like it is a quintessentially summer read, quote unquote, it is bloody good. So if that is on your list for the summer, you will not regret reading it. Timoteo is also planning on reading their first Emily Henry, which is exciting and very appropriate for summer, I think. I read Book Lovers and didn't mind it, so maybe that one. And Chain Gang All Stars, which has also been on my TBR for such a long time. I don't know, there's something intimidating about it. Back to Lumiere Doodles, they're also excited for V.E. Schwab's upcoming novel, which I have seen a lot of. I think is that like a sci-fi or a fantasy? I know that V.E. Schwab has a big following and a big fan base. Ella on TikTok will be rereading In Cold Blood for the millionth time on the beach in one sitting. Ella, that is crazy behavior. Good for you. So what an interesting spread of books you guys are going to be reading. Thank you for submitting your books. It's always fun to see, like, we're essentially all here because we are literary fiction readers, right? But to see and be reminded of how diverse literary fiction is always very fun. So I love having you guys submit your suggestions and your recommendations and telling me what you're reading at the moment and what you're looking forward to. If you want, jump over to the Swaggy Book Club Instagram and send me a message. My DMs are always open. I cannot stand these birds. Oh my God. They're telling me to wrap it up. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you got some exciting summer recommendations out of this video. If you did, let me know what books stood out. What are you gonna go and run out and buy or borrow from your library? What are you going to read this summer? And if you have any summer recs, let me know, because not only am I in the market for summer recommendations for my Europe holiday, but all of the other Northern Hemisphere residents watching this are gonna be on the lookout as well. So let's have a convo, jump in the comments, jump in the DMs, wherever you wanna chat. This is a book club, it goes both ways. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. The moment I stopped filming, the birds all flew away. So can somebody tell me what that means? Like, were they warning me of something? Were they protecting me? If I'd kept filming, would something have happened? Was I about to die? Did the birds just save my life? What the fuck just happened?